Hello and welcome to another episode of Cascadia Mountain Weather. My name is Kyle McCrow. I'm here with Wyatt Mullen, and today is Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. And we're going to take a look, start out by looking at the current snowpack. This is the SNOTEL snow water equivalent averages by different regions for the stations 3,500 feet and below. So we're looking at the lower elevations. And you can see that generally, especially on the west side and the North Cascades, we're not doing that well. There's not a lot of snow below 3,500 feet, especially in the Western Cascades. But then if we look at above 4,000 feet, we're actually doing pretty solid. So the Southern Cascades, the eastern part of the state, and especially the Oregon Cascades are doing very well at the higher elevations. That's great news for all the volcanoes, spring skiing down there, and even the Central Cascades and North Cascades and the Olympics are all looking pretty solid at the higher elevations because we've gotten a lot of precipitation recently.
Cool. So last week we were kind of worried a little bit about an atmospheric river event coming up right around this time frame, and luckily it appears that that is shifting a little bit further south. So we're going to stay a little bit on the drier section and the cooler section, which is always good for our snowpack. We can kind of look at our. We still have a parade of storms coming up. They're just not going to be quite as wet as we were originally thinking, and not quite as warm. So we can look at kind of the 6 hour precipitation as we go through the weekend. So this is 4 p.m. on Thursday. And as we go through, you'll see this system coming in here. And this is 10 a.m. Friday. So it's going to spread precipitation throughout the area on Friday. It's not going to be particularly strong, but it will bring some decently strong winds, which we'll go into later. And then once we get onto kind of 4 a.m. Saturday, you can see that it's starting to dry out through the area. And this is probably going to be our driest window of the weekend as we go through Saturday morning and into Saturday afternoon before our next system comes in. You can see this low moving in. It's going to be moving into Vancouver Island up there. And this will be our at least wetter system of the weekend. But it'll actually be a little bit cooler as well for at least the beginning of it. So that means that snow levels will be a little bit lower. And then as we move through the day on Sunday, we'll have some persistent showers hanging around the Cascades before drying out. And as we actually go into early next week, we are going to see a ridge build overhead and some drier than normal conditions. And we might be in kind of an inversion pattern, but we might even see the sun a bit. Just depends exactly how things set up. So we can look at our 24-hour accumulated precipitation. So as we go through, this is for 4 p.m. Friday, and you can see that this is kind of after that first storm has gone through. Not particularly wet, maybe half an inch in the Cascades. It's definitely wetter down in Oregon, where it'll also be a little bit warmer and snow levels will be a little bit higher. And then as we move through the day, Saturday, you can see this kind of 24-hour dry stretch going on, not completely dry, but it'll be mostly dry. And then here is this stronger system coming in with precipitation amounts up above an inch of rain or up above a foot of snow at the higher elevations in the kind of north and central Cascades. And then, like I mentioned, as we go further out into next week, we see that we are dry out. Snow levels, originally we were thinking they might bump up to like 8,000 feet. It looks like we're going to be topping out in kind of the 5 to 6,000 foot range. This is for the North Cascades, the west side, and this is for 4 a.m. Friday. So this is kind of the high point of the weekend, and then we'll fluctuate throughout the rest of the weekend. This is 4 a.m. Saturday and 4 a.m. Sunday, and you can see that by the end of Sunday, we're going to be starting to increase, but otherwise we'll be hanging pretty similar to last weekend in about that 4,000 foot level, maybe 3,500 feet, maybe 4,500 feet, depending on where you are in the Cascades. We can actually see that as well looking at our 5,000 foot temperatures or 850 millibar temperatures. Generally, if this is freezing about 5,000 feet, then that means snow level is about 4,000 feet. And you can see that as we move into tomorrow, we see this warm tongue move up. Temperatures get a little bit warmer. This is in Celsius, so 1 or 2 degrees is like 35, 36 degrees. And then as we move into Saturday, we actually see a cool down with these kind of cooler, whiter temperatures. And that persists for much of Saturday with that maybe 3,000 to 3,500 foot freezing level. And then as we move into early Saturday morning and Sunday, we see kind of mixed, where we'll see a bit of a bump up in the snow level, but not a crazy amount. Um, with kind of those fluctuating snow levels, and currently we're in a relatively cooler than normal pattern. Today we actually saw snow all the way down to about 1,000 feet. There will be some kind of entrenched cold air down at the lower levels, and that means that there is the chance, especially to the south, for a little bit of freezing rain. I think that this model's probably overdoing it a bit, but just be aware of that, especially in the valleys, and when you're like kind of at the lower elevations where you're starting, that both on Saturday or like Friday night into or I guess Friday, and then also later in the weekend, Saturday and even Sunday, there is a slight chance of for some like freezing rain or freezing drizzle at some of those higher elevations. If we look at our snowfall, so this was kind of what was falling today. And then you can see this next storm coming in. It has higher snow levels than we saw earlier. And it peaks kind of 4 p.m. Friday. That's when the snow levels maybe are at their highest. And then we start seeing drying out. And then the next storm, which comes in kind of during the day Saturday, has those lower snow levels, and then bumps up again into Sunday. In terms of total accumulated snowfall, we might actually see by the end of the weekend, once again, kind of 1 to maybe 2 feet, especially about 4K, maybe 4,500 to the south and 3,500 to the far north, where you'll stay all snow throughout the weekend. And you might even see upwards of 2 feet at those upper elevations, especially above 5K. Generally, you're not going to see much snow, probably below about 3,500 to 3K. Just wanted to highlight this is snow the National Weather Service forecast for about 3,000 feet at Snoqualmie Pass, showing kind of this mixture of snow and rain. You might get some decent snow at the pass. It just depends on how well the cold air coming from the east side is entrenched. You may also see some freezing rain. You can see that they have a bit of freezing rain forecast for Sunday night into Monday. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit also on some of the other days. And then the last thing that I wanted to highlight in terms of the weather this weekend is the wind. So tomorrow, this is the forecast wind, sustained wind, and the streamlines, and this is for 10 meters. And this is actually highlighting kind of some easterly and some southeasterly flow that we're going to be getting, especially through the gap. So you can see it through Snoqualmie Pass right here and Stevens Pass right here. And that will continue through kind of early to mid-afternoon Friday before the winds calm down, and it should be calmer for much of the rest of the weekend. If we look at kind of gusts during that time frame, we might even see gusts maybe to 30, 40, maybe even 50 miles an hour. So just be aware of that if you're going out tomorrow.
So this is the current avalanche forecast for Friday. In most places, it's moderate or considerable. That kind of represents the incoming storm that is bringing a little bit warmer temperatures, so might create some like upside down snow. And additionally, there's variable winds, as Wyatt mentioned. There could be like easterly winds hitting a lot of the gaps. So there's definitely some factors that are ramping up the avalanche danger a little bit. This is specifically the forecast for West Slope South. This includes Crystal, Paradise, White Pass, etc. Yeah, and the main thing they're talking about, especially at the higher elevations, is wind slap. So there is some fresh snow falling, but still, like wind is the biggest concern because it's coming from the east, which is not like a typical direction. We haven't talked a lot recently about ENSO, so La Nina and El Nino. I think a lot of people have felt that this La Nina winter has not really been very La Nina like. We've seen a lot of warmer temperatures and higher freezing levels. So we wanted to touch base with where the ENSO cycle is. And since late November, we have really plunged off a cliff, heading deeper into La Nina territory. So previously, we were kind of in a very weak La Nina, almost a neutral, more of a neutral. And now we're heading quickly towards a moderate La Nina. And so this is makes us generally bullish for the next few months for actually starting to get more typical La Nina weather, which brings cooler weather and lower snow levels. This is the latest graphic looking at the monthly outlook and then also the outlook for the whole season. And you can see that January is still looking a little bit above average temperature wise. That's generally reminiscent of like influenced by the next few weeks that look kind of dry and warm. But the January, February, March timeframe is projected to be below average overall and quite wet, which means a lot of snow. So that's good news, and hopefully that comes true. Yeah, so in the short term, we're looking kind of dry and warm, but not necessarily fully dry. There'll probably be still some systems coming through this ridge, but definitely drier conditions, more sun, so a little change of pace. Finally, thanks to everyone who supports us. If you know, getting these individuals, they give us a little bit of support that helps us get better weather models and also deliver a great forecast every week. In return, these people get more like specific recreation recommendations each weekend. So if that's something that interests you, we encourage you to click on the link in our show notes and support us. Thanks to everyone, and we hope you have a good weekend.